Hey, welcome to the Happiness Leap, a podcast where we speak to people who live life knowing that whatever happens to them, they will always have a smile on their face. And through these chats, we unearth the small mental leaps we take when faced with mountains in front of them.
Good. Perfect. So we'll start. I know you have to leave at 3
Yeah,
o'clock.
but we can extend
So
it.
a
Yeah.
little bit. Cool. Perfect. So thank you so much for giving me your time.
Thank you for reaching out.
Yeah, I loved your story. I remember reading it on a couple of websites
Okay,
actually.
okay.
And like, damn, you don't hear too many people, one who accept a grace, most
Yeah.
importantly. You don't hear a lot of models who are at
Yeah,
58. That's really, really insane.
yeah.
So, welcome once again. Uh, this podcast is called the Happiness Leap
Okay.
Podcast. And what we try to do is, right, we try to speak to people who kind of live life knowing that whatever happens to them, they will always have a smile on their face. No matter what shit life throws at them, they will always be
That's
smiling.
so nice.
And through these, uh, and through these conversations, what we do is we try to learn the kind of tips and tricks that they've
Yeah,
used to always stay
yeah.
smiling. That's essentially what the Happiness Leap podcast is
Sure.
about, right? So I'll give you a bit of a background of what
Yeah.
I do. So I used to be in marketing and advertising most of my
Okay.
life. Till a year
Okay.
back, I used to head marketing at
Okay.
Z5, the Zeek OTT
Okay.
platform. So I used to look after marketing
Okay.
there. And I was also a yoga teacher.
Oh,
So I used to work and teach
okay.
yoga. But then last April, actually, on just exactly a year from now, I quit and I became a full-time yoga teacher.
Oh,
So now teaching yoga is my full-time job. And recently I've started this Happiness Sleep
okay.
podcast where I realized that it's a proper extension of what yoga is. It gives you calm, it gives you peace, and it also puts you in a positive mental
Absolutely,
mind
because you're
space.
spreading happiness.
Exactly. So it just all just seemed to
Yeah,
flow
yeah.
properly. So once I started reaching out to people, reading up on people, I came across your
Okay.
story. So before we start on yours, if you could tell me a bit about your growing up days, your schooling and
Yeah,
your
yeah,
college and
yeah.
family.
So if you know how older people get very, very lengthy about stuff, the moment you find I'm me going off track, please tell me. So
No
because
problems.
I'd love to talk about my childhood. So my dad was a bureaucrat, and because he was in that job, he used to get posted to places that didn't offer very good schools. So,
Okay.
and one day he kind of walked in and he saw us, mispronouncing words and stuff like that. So it upset him a lot. And so we were packed off to a boarding school. So I was raised in a boarding school. It was a Catholic boarding school. And
Okay.
from class sixth onwards, I studied there, and learned to live with other boarders. And then the same, because now, it was something that grew on me. I got so attached to the atmosphere that I grew up in that I continued with the same institution in college as well. So I finished my school and then I went on to do my honors in English from the same college. So the college was just
Okay.
across the road.
Oh.
Yeah.
So was it across the road from your house or from your
No, from
school?
the school. I was a boarder.
Okay.
So, and I
Okay.
continued to be a boarder in college as well. And that's when, like you were talking about, friendships and the kind of things. So I was a shy kid, and I wasn't too much into sports. And because I was short-sighted, so I was kind of clumsy. I was very tall. I mean, in those days, I was considered tall. Now, of course, there are people much taller than me, but I was considered tall, and I was always being hounded by the sports teacher to, you know, play basketball. But I was clumsy. I could never make a basket, and no team wanted me. So, so I pretended that I didn't really want to play sports, although they did attract me. Maybe intrinsically I did want to be uh, physically active, But then I took the other path. I became a bookworm. I enjoyed sitting in nooks and corners and reading. So reading became a passion, and that's how I moved on to English, you know, honors and then masters
Uh,
in English. Mhm.
okay. Did you ever think that your career would also want to be in English,
Yeah,
or was it just because
I
you love?
did actually. I did want to be in academics because I just had a major crush on my English professor. So, and she was so good, so graceful, and like she must have been just a few years older than us. But the dignity and the grace with which she carried, and the passion with which she taught us poetry, and so I
Okay.
really wanted to be like her. But then I met my husband and fell in love, and all those plans, got shelved because I got married pretty young.
Uh-huh. So I remember reading also your husband was in the Air
Yes,
Force or in the
Air
Army.
Force. He was a fighter pilot.
Air Force.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is he still flying by any
No,
chance?
he actually he took early retirement from the Air Force, and then he did a lot of commercial flying. And now now
Okay.
he's retired from commercial flying as well. He's a full-time gardener
Okay.
in our house.
Oh, very good. So, and you were also from Bharatpur
Yes,
in Rajasthan, right?
that is kind of the place my parents settled down in. And my dad also belongs to I mean, he belonged to Bharatpur. So that was his last
Okay.
posting. Like, I believe they give you a choice of posting when it is your last posting. So that's where my parents settled down. And
Oh,
so you can say I'm from Bharatpur, and so is my husband.
okay. So, did life change a lot after you got married?
Yeah, because as far as Bharatpur is concerned, I didn't know much about Bharatpur. It just seemed like home, So every time, from when you went home on a break, it was just home and maybe trips to the
Mm-hmm.
bird sanctuary. That's about it. Mm.
Okay. And then once you got married, a lot of it changed then.
So I got married, in fact, at the same time as when my parents moved to Bharatpur. Like I was telling you earlier, they also led a very nomadic lifestyle. But it was better
Correct.
than the services. But even they were constantly on the move. That's why, we studied in the boarding, me and my siblings.
Yeah, okay. Did this constant moving, like right from the time you were a
Yeah,
child, which you were
yeah,
used to, after you got married also, you were always like kind of moving
yeah,
cities or moving
yeah.
places. It kind of affect you mentally.
I feel that it has had a positive impact as well as a bit of a negative impact. The positive is that I think it's made me very adaptable, you know.
Oh,
So
okay.
changing situations have, been more acceptable than they would have been had
Hmm.
I, lived in the same town, had my own set of friends. I think it also taught me to, be more acceptable because there would be to be more accepting, sorry, to be more accepting
Okay.
of others, So one always needs friends, and you can't just have your own kind of people around you, So that is something I learned early after marriage because that's when I realized that, I won't have the same kind of atmosphere that I grew up in.
Yeah, okay. So what kind of messages would you tell yourself, or would you give yourself, saying that, in a few months or in a few years, I know I will have to move from
Yeah,
here. So, but I'm going to make the best
yeah,
of what
yeah.
time I have here.
So,
What do you
yeah,
tell yourself?
how do you pronounce your name? Riley,
Riley,
right?
Riley.
So, Riley, actually, what I think places are also like people, So, there are some, like just as, you kind of uh, have more of an affinity towards a certain kind of a person, you get along better, and it's not the same with the other person. The same rule
Hmm.
applies to places as well. Uh, you walk into an airbase and you find it very welcoming, or there's something about it that makes you feel very, very happy about, the setup there and the kind of people. that seem to be surrounding you. So you
Mhm.
enjoy that. But then it's life is very cyclic, you know. And I've noticed that every time there was a good place that we went to, after that there was a difficult place that we went to. So, and the place is actually not difficult. It's the people that make it difficult, you know. So sometimes there were a set of um, maybe my husband's seniors who were very warm and loving and welcoming and made us feel extremely good. And then there were
Mhm.
others, you know, who probably had their own reasons for being the way they were. So it was always like that. So one good place followed with one not so good place. And I think it taught me to be very adaptable.
Okay. Was it during that time that you started painting, you know?
No, see, when I was a kid, I used to love sketching. I used to do a lot of pencil sketches. But then when I got married, mm, uh, I don't know how honest I can be here, but when I got married, when I got married, I used to sketch, and my husband also used to sketch. So he
Okay.
probably was, you know, he was very anatomically correct about whatever he made. So he would point out to me that, you know, this is not, and that kind of dissuaded me. So I stopped. I stopped,
Okay.
you know, my journey in art there, right there. And I don't know, probably I'm one of those people, especially in my growing years, I did not take to criticism very well. So I just didn't, I felt I was not good enough and I didn't do it. But much later, much later, when he was flying and the kids were growing up and they were kind of busy and there was a lot of space and time, that is the time my sister encouraged me actually. She bought me a lot of canvases and paint and brushes, and she said, just have fun with colors, you know, because you
Hmm.
have an artistic bent. And I've had no, you know, formal education in art. So I just started, and I had this intense love for the musicians of the 70s and 80s, you know. So I remember in school I had made one sketch of Mick Jagger, and a lot of people had fought over that sketch. So remembering that, I started painting the musicians of the 70s and 80s. And that became quite a hit with my kids as well as my kids' friends. And then people said that I must, you know, have an exhibition. Um, and that is how my Instagram account also started. So, yeah.
Okay. So have you exhibited your stuff like professionally also
I
now?
have several times.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice. So is that like a side profession now? Or is that like a main profession or is
It's
just a
not a
hobby now?
profession, you know. I still have to probably figure out how to make it financially viable, but it gives me a lot of joy. I have been able to sell a few paintings to, you know, and sell them at a good price, but it's not really as yet a profession.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. So, coming back to to another point of your
Yeah,
mom, I remember reading that uh, your mom fell sick, and then again life took a
yeah,
different turn for you, where you had to stop everything and take
yeah.
care of her. You know, what kind of like my I'm trying to understand is what kind of message again. I keep coming back to what kind of messaging that you gave yourself to know like once the moving bit happens, right? And then you say, okay, I want to do something of
Yeah,
myself, but I need to put that
yeah,
on hold. So then maybe like the painting could be part
yeah,
of it, but then my husband is too critical of what I
yeah,
do. Then now maybe I've started doing that nicely, but now my mom falls
yeah.
sick, you know. It's these things where things seem to be working, but something comes in. What do you tell yourself? Constantly be, motivated to not stop
So
doing what you like.
actually, I have also been very fortunate to have, you know, been introduced to a very fine philosophy. So I don't know whether we can talk here about, you know, religious things.
Yeah,
We
yeah, we
can.
can talk.
So
Yeah.
I follow Nichiren Buddhism, and in Nichiren Buddhism, what they do is they teach you. Um, the thing that attracted me to this philosophy was it says that, you know, you cannot change your circumstances or the world around you, but what you can do is change yourself. You know, And when change comes from within, then there is also change without. So they believe in the oneness of self and environment. So when you're able to change something from within, you're also able to change your environment. So I used to be, you could say I used to be a depressive, and I used to, sometimes feel very helpless in situations, and I used to feel that, everything's so much larger than me and feel very overwhelmed by situations. But when I joined this practice, I was so encouraged and felt so empowered, because what this philosophy teaches you is that everything that happens in your life is for you to polish your life. It's like
Mhm.
even unpleasant people, unpleasant circumstances, difficulties, everything is helping in polishing your life, because you need something abrasive to polish you. you know Yeah.
Correct.
So so um, that's how. And I'm the oldest child, and I was extremely, like, I think you did ask a question as to were you a favorite child. Yes, I was a favorite child. I was the oldest child, and my dad had a lot of expectations from me, and I don't work well against expectations. I don't work well against criticism. So I let him down by getting married. I could have done something. He wanted me to be an IAS. I could have done that, but I got married. And yet I always felt that, immense sense of having let him down. So when I lost him in 2006, um, and my mother's world was my dad. So when he passed on, I did not even think twice. I did not even take her permission, because she was in no state. I just brought her over to live with me. I didn't even ask my husband's permission, can I bring her over? And because I decided that if he is against it, I'll go somewhere, but I will not, leave my mom. So we were kind of
Okay.
soulmates. She was my buddy. So I took care of
Okay.
her through her depression, and, her overcoming the loss of my dad. And that bond kept building, and, she became the source of light in this household. From a person who was
Oh,
so unhappy, she became, like, she was so ebullient. You walked into her room and she'd always have something funny to say. So, and so we spent many years together as friends. And when I used to paint anything and I used to rush up to show it to her, she would always give her, she did not know anything about Bob Marley or Steve Tyler or Mick Jagger, but she would give her opinion
hmm.
about, there was a painting I made of Prince, and that was her favorite, because I kind of created a scene of purple rain. So she
Okay.
said that that was her favorite painting. So her opinion really counted and mattered to me. And then, of course, towards the last couple of years, she developed cancer, and we discovered. I mean, we were constantly having her checked, and she was going through all her, um, investigations very regularly, but still, when the cancer was discovered, it was pretty late, and uh, because of her advanced age, they couldn't really do something, and we didn't want her to be put through, um, very, very invasive kind of treatment.
Hmm.
Although she did have a surgery, but we didn't put her through chemo, because at her
Okay.
request. So
Okay.
like you said, it never felt like a sacrifice, really, looking after her. Never felt like a sacrifice.
Okay. And I'm sure there must have been like really difficult times, like seeing your mom go through, taking care of your dad, being the support that she was, then just getting over to
Yeah.
your place. There has to be like low phases,
Okay,
in
yes,
this
there
whole.
were low phases, and
How do you come out of?
and the practicality of things. So here's a woman who's the queen of her household, and then she loses everything, and she comes and stays in her daughter's house. I had the empathy to understand that it is like a dethroned king who's come to, come for asylum somewhere, you know. I could
Uh-huh.
understand that. And I think probably that empathy, probably that I had inherited from her, that helped me see through this difficult period.
Okay.
And she used to,
So empathy
and
was
she used to
important.
encourage me a lot. She used to say, because you're such a good child, you're going to have so much good fortune flowing into your life. So actually, when the stupid modeling thing started, I actually thought that it was her doing.
Yeah, okay. So that's coming back to my next question. How did the modeling thing start?
So, so it all goes to my hair. The credit goes to my
Yeah.
hair.
That that question also.
So, and then again, it is connected to my mother because my mother really believed in us being very well groomed and looking younger than our years and you know
Okay.
dressing smartly. She encouraged that. So I used to keep my hair colored, and I used to always, people used to ask me, people always thought me to be almost a decade younger than I was. And I took pride, in the fact that that's how it was. But when she got so
Hmm.
sick, I started feeling like a fraud because I hated having to cover my roots, and they had to be done professionally because otherwise, it looked very messy and bad. I was not
Hmm.
very good at, touching it up at home. So a lot of time and
Hmm.
money was being wasted in just doing my hair, and I wanted to also look good and groomed when I was rushing to the emergency or the ICU. Because in this world that we live in, it's how you project yourself, how you look, also gets the reaction from people. So a woman who's well groomed, who's looking smart, gets the attention of the doctors, you know. So, mm, so that's the time, I realized that I'm not going to make it a priority. I'm going to just, quit this thing. And my mother's health and other things matter. And by then, I had also started feeling that, I was not really looking so good with the color. Because, I read somewhere, some artist said that God created a palette for us, so the skin tone and the hair tone, should match. So as we
Hmm.
age, our skin changes, its tone, its texture, and nature meant the hair to look a certain way with that skin and texture. So all these, inputs kind of encouraged me to, and then I saw a lot of beautiful international models who were just, looking so gorgeous with their gray hair. So
Isn't there a term called that? There's this term called
silver
silver
fox.
fox. I think they use it for guys.
No, they use it
Yeah.
for women as well.
Or
Yeah.
for women also. Okay.
But this movement of women going gray is more recent. Um
Correct.
but there was this very beautiful French model who turned gray in her teens, and she never colored her hair. Uh, and
Okay.
I used to just look at her and I used to find her so beautiful. She was a real source of inspiration.
Okay. Did a lot of people, I'm guessing they did, what I'm going to ask you anyways, did a lot of people like
Yeah,
ridicule you or
yeah.
force you
My mother,
to
my
keep
mother said,
coloring?
she said, "Are you prepared to be called Mataji?" I said, "Yes, I am." So yes, there were a lot of people who ridiculed. There was a lot of nasty jokes and comments sent to me. And mm, but I joined a support group on Facebook, and I used to share. They were like
Okay.
sisters, I used to share everything that I was going through with them, and they were so supportive.
So was the support group for people with graying hair or was it
It
a
was a
gentle support
support
group?
group for people with graying hair, and people
Oh, what are you
people
saying?
embracing their authenticity.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's nice. So they
they
helped you a
helped me
lot.
a lot.
Okay. How did your husband or
My
your kids
husband
take it?
actually both of us grayed young. I colored my hair, he just kept it gray. And he looked so good. People used to say he looks like Richard Gere and stuff like that. So he was very happy. He's always believed in being natural. So he was very happy. He says, "This is a good thing you're doing."
Oh, awesome. And your kids?
My daughter was a little upset. She says, Mama, don't you see your pictures of colored hair and wish you were looking like that? And I don't want you to give up on life. Her major concern was that I'd give up on life, especially after losing
Okay.
my mother. So I made a
Okay.
promise to her that, I'll be really fit, you know. I will get into fitness and I will, be very stylish. I will not just because I'm going gray that, I will lose interest in life otherwise. I'll be more interested
Hmm.
and more impassioned about life than I was when I had my colored hair. So, so what we did was then all this gray hair was growing mainly through the lockdown, and during the lockdown we would just order clothes online and try them on and click pictures and post them on Instagram, and I think that's how I got noticed. Mm.
Oh, nice. Did while you went to this whole phase of gradually going, stopping to color your hair and going gray, what were the things you told yourself? Like, what did you say that, no matter what kind of jabs I get, no
Yeah.
matter what these people say to me, it is not going to affect me, but I'm going to,
I had a
keep
lot of
going.
strategies. I had a lot of strategies. So one of the strategies was, you've seen any woman who's just started graying her hair, her roots are gray and the rest of the hair is dark. Hmm?
Yeah.
So she looks very sad. Such a person looks very sad, even if she's very happy. The entire
Huh.
impression is very sad. So that's the time I made sure that, I would wear makeup, I would wear mascara, and I'd get a lot of confused looks from people who would be thinking, has this woman given up on herself or has she not? Because one can't decide, I kept my sense of humor alive. And then, my mother had a nurse who used to come to take care of her. And the nurse was very young, but she said something really profound. So we were just discussing my hair. So she says, for some time, just stop thinking about your hair. Just stop thinking. I said, what made you say that? She says, when we were little, so we used to get lice in our hair, and my dad used to shave us, you know. And, he used to say that forget about the hair for a while. Just forget about your hair for a while. So I thought that, I just took in inputs from wherever, to motivate myself because the hair color was there. There was a bottle of hair color in my bathroom, and that desire to reach out to it and just cover up the roots was very much there, especially in the initial stages. But I resisted it. And every night I used to see YouTube videos that women were making about how to, go gray. They were teaching you how to, wear berets and hats and hairbands and, Mm.
So you are one of the few people who've been using YouTube videos for the good part of it, not just
Yeah,
wasting time on stupid
yeah,
memes or people
yeah,
flopping out
yeah.
videos and stuff like that. Yeah. So how did this lead to the modeling then?
So, what happened was so this was also during the lockdown that I have only one nephew, my sister's son, and he was to get married. And I had this, desire to really look good at his wedding. So I was just going through Instagram and I saw, a model wearing a very gorgeous sari. It was silver. It was so I said, silver is the color for my silver hair. So I sent her a message
Huh.
asking her that where does one get this sari, and she got me in touch with the designers. And it was a little steep for me, but I ordered that sari because I really wanted to wear that sari. And in the wedding, that sari was a huge hit because, older people generally, in weddings, there are such beautiful people, young people, that older people are kind of transparent. But I got so much attention in that wedding. There were strangers walking up to me and congratulating me on my gray and my sari and how well they looked together that when I came home, I posted a post with all those pictures of the wedding, and I tagged the designer, and I wrote that this is a note of thank you to this beautiful sari that I wore. And the designer, obviously, because he got tagged, he saw it on his Insta and he immediately posted it as a post on his page. And then he got in touch with me. He said that, some of the posts which are very, professional of models have not got the kind of response that your images have got. So, would you like to wear some of my outfits? So I said, sure. I was very flattered. So he came home, and very humbly he came home with a photographer and with a set of outfits, and I wore those, and they took pictures for their website and their page and everything. And that was my first encounter with modeling. And then, obviously, him being a well-known designer, other designers saw the pictures and then they started reaching out. So all that I have been able to do is only through, it's not been through an agency, a modeling agency. It's been through direct contact from designers or brands.
Oh, nice. Have you walked the
No,
ramp
I
also?
haven't.
The photo
Yeah,
shoots then, all because of that
yeah,
one sari,
yeah.
silver. How once you did your first photo shoot, I'm quite sure your kids or your daughter would have been really, really happy
Even,
that you're not giving
yeah,
up
she
life.
she's very happy. In fact, we've
to
done
not
a
come.
few shoots together. We've done a shoot for
Oh, nice.
Nicobar together and for Turn Black. Mm.
Oh, nice. Nicobar is one of my favorite brands, though. I
Yeah.
really like that stuff.
So you go to Nicobar, you'll see
Yeah.
us together, my daughter and I.
So I
Mhm.
will check it out post this call. So tell me, Amrik, when you got
Yeah.
into modeling, like you told me once you went gray, you got a lot of comments and annoying people. Once you got into modeling, I'm sure the same people had a point to say.
So, yes, they do,
Might as well be honest and just say, yeah, it happened. And because people get into modeling like at a younger age and people taunt them. So I'm
Yeah,
quite sure
yeah,
at a later
yeah,
age, if you get it,
yeah.
it'll be even.
But one discovers that modeling is not just a mindless activity.
It is
It's
not.
not. There's so much that goes into it, and I have such immense respect for all people who've made this their career.
It is. It is. So what did you, like, how did you block those people out? How did you block those comments out? Or that negativity out, so to
Because
say?
the positivity was far outweighed the negativity. There was,
Did simply,
I
sorry?
said, there has been such a huge response from young women. And
Oh, nice.
I have so much gratitude to these young women on social media because
It's
because
nice.
they
Did
say that I help them, fight the fear of aging.
Oh, that's so sweet. But what about people your own age? Do they get very cynical or do they get grumpy or are they very
The
supportive also?
people my age, I mean, my friends and all, they're very sweet and very supportive. And I also get a lot of
Oh.
messages from people that please give us some tips how to start modeling. So,
That is so nice. Sir. So is there, if you had to, give one kind of value, so to say, to just overcome the grayness and the modeling at in your 50s, what would be that kind of message? Like, what would you tell the younger girls who are so supportive of you? Of how would you accept, or how you accepted graying? Like, what would you tell them?
so I just say that every stage of life is beautiful. It's your perception, actually. So we are so, it's so ingrained into our psyche that age is something unattractive. Age is something. The other day, Riley, I was very disturbed. I was seeing, my daughter works for a publishing house, so they had a live going on, and they were interviewing a very young woman, you know. So they were interviewing a young woman, and the two interviewers, they were slightly older women, but I'd still say they were very young women. So one of them had
Okay.
just a few gray streaks in her hair, and I thought she was lovely. And I saw a comment. Can I say it in Hindi?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the comment was so rude. ये बुढ़ी कौन है? So this is the attitude, this is the psyche that, old age is something to be ashamed of. Old age is something, why do you think we were all coloring our hair? Because we didn't want to be called buddhi, right? Hmm. But why? Age is inevitable. Even the child who's born today is aging. From the moment he's born, he's aging every minute.
Mm.
So why, sort of deny something that is inevitable? Why not embrace it as something very beautiful? The other day, I was very touched by somebody who was terminally ill. I think I saw it on BBC or somewhere. Somebody who was very terminally ill and, was on, had been on life support for a while and asked the life support to be removed and said she wanted to experience death, you know. So
Oh,
I was so moved by that. So aging, why are we scared of aging? Because we are somewhere, age is a precursor to death. So we're scared of death, and therefore we are scared of aging. But why are we scared of
that,
something that is inevitable? Why not embrace it and see?
that
Like this woman wanted to see the beauty of death. She didn't want to be, not aware of what was happening to her.
that actually when you said it, I got goosebumps.
I got
Yeah.
goosebumps when I
Like,
saw that.
like how often do you hear people say that they want to embrace death?
Exactly.
Like
So,
I remember there was.
so,
Sorry, you
so
said.
I feel that she had reached such a profound life state, of enlightenment, I would
Hmm.
say, you know,
Yeah,
which I think is possible for all of us. It's,
that is true. That is true. I remember watching a Steve Jobs interview, or it was one of his speeches at Stanford or something, where he said this was after he was diagnosed with cancer, and he said that death is the only thing that we are 100% sure of, right? And once you accept it, is when you start looking at life
yes,
very
yeah,
differently. Your priorities get a lot
yeah,
more different. What you want from life is a
yeah,
lot more different. That was like for everyday people to experience it and say it is a huge thing. But when a guy who has everything in life, who's built so much, and
yeah,
then he says it, it just hits
yeah,
differently. So cool. Yeah, I think Mukta, we've had a wonderful
yeah.
conversation. Thank you so much for your time. especially the last part of it was so goosebumpy,
I'm so
so to say.
happy. I'm so happy, Riley, and it was lovely
Thank you so
connecting
much.
with you.